Hello, my name is Guy Wallace, and I'd like to orient you to the predictability of the PACT processes for training and development, learning, and knowledge management. I am the author of the PACT processes, a set of 3 integrated, performance-based instructional systems design methodologies. PACT processes have been project-proven in several hundred ISD efforts by myself, my business partners, and my ISD consulting staff at 2 consulting firms between 1982 and 2002. I started developing these methods in 1982 when I joined my wife at the time and Ray Svensson in Ray's consulting business. I had met Ray when he was consulting with Bill Wiggenhorn, the leader of the forerunner organization to Motorola University, Motorola's Training and Education Center. Ray was helping Bill set up what I now call a governance and advisory system, which is at the 12 o'clock position in my book, Training and Development Systems View. But it was an approach that I saw Ray establish with many of our clients, and I'd worked with many of those groups then, addressing their curriculum architecture design needs, and then we'd follow up, or our client staff would follow up, with the building and buying of the CAD modular content. Ray had published the very first reference to the term curriculum architecture in the ASTD Journal in 1978, and it was also addressed at a high level in his book, The Training and Development Strategic Plan Workbook. My needs regarding these methods that became the PACT processes expanded as our firm's business grew. I had done a dozen CAD projects in the first several years, and as I became the leader of the ISD side of our business, and had several staff members and several external contractors for our ADDI-level ISD business, I needed predictability. Predictability in terms of the tasks and the outputs of the project, the task schedules, the cycle time, and all of the costs that we would incur, so that I could bid these projects fixed fee, and then live by my estimates, and learn by tracking actuals against those estimates, which I have done since 1982. I have personally conducted over 70 curriculum architecture design projects and over 50 MCD IAD level efforts, and my business partners and ISD consulting staff and the staff of my clients that I had trained and certified have conducted several hundred projects on top of that. PACT is certainly project proven and predictable. How predictable is your current ISD process or processes? Predictable in terms of the time burdens on project participants and the schedule of those time burdens, of hitting the initial scheduled key meeting dates, of hitting the incurred cost targets and budgets for the effort. Predictable in terms of producing client acceptable and valued data and designs and instructional content. How predictable are your ISD methods for projects such as a performance-based training needs analysis, a curriculum architecture project, for telecommunications industry product managers, over 1,100 people in the job title, leading a multi-year effort to bring new products to the marketplace and overseeing over 500,000 products in their product family portfolios across 5 different business units. How predictable are your ISD methods for the design of 30-plus days of leading-edge combinatorial chemistry technology training intended for PhD chemists? How predictable are your ISD methods addressing a politically charged project to design a management curriculum? How predictable are your ISD methods for redesigning 7 existing, varied regional training curricula, averaging over 80 days each, with 0 shareable content, with the goal of increasing the shareable content significantly and improving the performance impact of the training and development as measured by on-the-job task performance? With the PACT processes, I can predict project time burdens on project participants and their schedules. I can hit the initial scheduled key meeting dates all the way through the effort, and I can predict the total cycle time. I can hit the incurred cost targets and budgets for the effort. I can produce client acceptable and valued data, designs, and instructional content. As I said, I've been tracking actuals to plan since 1982 on several hundred projects. I know where Murphy, or sources of variation, are most likely to occur and how to avoid them in the first place, and what to do if the unavoidable happens. If you review my book Lean ISD, in the appendices section you'll find a listing of project tasks for consideration as just a starting point for both curriculum architecture design efforts and MCD efforts. IED follows the MCD process. And in the book you'll see a table on page 152. It's an estimating table for CAD projects by ISD supplier roles and ISD customer roles, when they are following the basic PACT process for curriculum architecture design and modular curriculum development and acquisition, without any additional review team meetings in the mix. I start with these estimating figures and adjust based on several factors, which we'll come back to later. Curriculum architecture design cycle time varies by the size and scope of the project. On page 150 in my book Lean ISD, a table lays out the phase-by-phase and total cycle times for a small CAD project, a medium-sized CAD project, and a large CAD project. Small CAD projects can be done in 6 or 7 weeks. A small CAD project is defined as one where the target audience members hold a single job title and are most likely located in one location, or where the performance is relatively standard between all locations. In addition, customers and key stakeholders are easy to contact and schedule. A medium-sized CAD project would take between 8 and 10 weeks. It is defined as a project where multiple jobs may be targeted. The project steering team members and analysis and design team members might be in multiple locations, making scheduling a little bit more difficult. A large CAD project might take between 11 and 14 weeks. It's defined as one where the target audiences are even more varied and where the performance varies greatly between those multiple locations. In Curriculum Architecture Design Phase 1, PACT practitioners might spend anywhere from 2 to 6 days in the role of the PACT project manager. In Phase 2 of CAD, PACT practitioners might spend between 2 and 5 days in the role of the project manager and 5 to 8 days in the roles of the PACT performance analyst. In Phase 3, PACT practitioners might spend between 2 and 5 days in the role of the PACT project manager and 6 to 10 days in the role of the PACT CAD designer. In Phase 4 of CAD, the PACT practitioners might spend between 3 and 4 days in the role of the PACT project manager. Again, these are estimates, a starting place to adjust based on the specific situational factors you are facing. For MCD and IED efforts, see the estimating tables in my book on pages 212 and 213. In MCD Phase 1, PACT practitioners might spend between 2 to 6 days in the role of the PACT project manager. In MCD Phase 2, PACT practitioners might spend between 2 and 4 days in the role of the PACT project manager and between 5 and 8 days in the role of the PACT project analyst. In MCD Phase 3 design, the PACT practitioners might spend between 2 to 4 days in the role of the PACT project manager and 6 to 12 days in the role of the PACT MCD and IED designer. An aside, now when I fixed fee bid MCD projects, I prefer to bid it in 2 stages: Phases 1 through 3, project planning and kickoff, analysis and design as the first stage. And then once the design is approved and we all have much better visibility and clarity as to what exactly is going to be built or acquired, I can bid the phases 4 through 6 fixed fee, and it's most often the point where my clients want to know what it would cost and how long it would take so that they may compare that to the advantages and disadvantages of having their own staff or other contractors take over and develop and acquire the content, pilot test it, and update it for release into their deployment systems. In the second half, Stage 2 of MCD and IED efforts, in Phase 4, development and acquisition, the PACT practitioners might spend between 6 to 10 days of time in the role of the PACT project manager. The lead developer and developers will spend 20-30 days. It all depends on the bulk amount of the content to be developed, its familiarity, its complexity, its the availability of resources, etc. Here's where you need to have your own history of development time and effort per deliverable. It's the old development ratios that historically have represented too many different variables from firm to firm and from claim to claim that long ago I stopped believing anybody's claims of a 5 to 1 or 10 to 1 or 40 to 1 or 400 to 1 ratio. I've always seen it as a meaningless figure, although worthy of pursuit. I have my own now, and they are highly dependent on how you conduct this part of the business in your shop and the kinds of content that you're dealing with, whether the content is leading and bleeding edge or the basics, and how much staff resources you have to apply to that effort. So me giving you my development ratios really won't help you much as a benchmark. In Phase 5 of MCD, the PACT practitioners might spend between 2 to 4 days in the role of the PACT project manager. There will also be time incurred for pilot test participants and the pilot test deployment team. In MCD Phase 6, the PACT practitioners might spend between 2 and 3 days worth of time in the role of the PACT project manager. The PACT lead developer and all other assigned developers will spend time updating the content, and that will vary based on the bulk amount of the content in the first place and the success of the pilot session and the amount of revision recommendations that were turned into revision specifications and now are the guides for updating the content prior to release to the deployment systems in place. Those other factors that we've been talking about, there are 5 in my model. 1. The total scope of effort and the estimated amount of content to be produced. 2. The complexity or simplicity and the familiarity or not of the content to the development resources, the development team. Number 3. The availability of content resources, the people and data that can speak to or provide the content. Number 4. The number of developers and authors to be used to develop the content. Number 5. The availability of the review and approval resources in a timely fashion. In summary, PACT's use of common processes with common and standard, but highly flexible, outputs, tasks, roles and teams, tools and templates creates a very predictable approach. Predictable in terms of time burdens on the project participants and the schedules for those. Predictable in terms of hitting the initial scheduled key meeting dates all the way through the project, thus predicting project cycle time. Hitting the incurred cost targets and budgets for the effort. And predictable in terms of producing client acceptable and highly valued data in terms of performance models, knowledge and skill matrices, assessments of existing training for reuse purposes, and the instructional designs and the instructional content itself. You can learn more about the PACT processes in my book, Lean ISD, 404 pages, which is available as a free PDF on my website at www.eppic.biz. That's epic with 2 P's, .biz. And you can contact me, Guy Wallace, via my website as well. I hope that you have found this informational. Thank you, and have a great day.